Welcome to the Ken Harbaugh Show. There's been a lot of talk lately about fascism coming to America. I think it's important to contextualize that, to understand the history of fascism, what should and shouldn't qualify as a fascist movement, so that we can decide whether MAGA and Trumpism deserve that label. The best place to start for an understanding that specifically considers the threat to American democracy is with the definition provided by the U.S. Army. When fascism was at its zenith during World War II, the War Department published a series of pamphlets for U.S. Army personnel deployed to the European theater titled Army Talk. These pamphlets were created so that the Americans responsible for fighting fascism could, quote, become better informed men and women and therefore better soldiers. On March 24th, 1945, the topic for the week was fascism. Here's what the U.S. Army pamphlet says. Fascism is not the easiest thing to identify and analyze, nor, once in power, is it easy to destroy. It is important for our future and that of the world that as many of us as possible understand the causes and practices of fascism in order to combat it. Fascism is government by the few and for the few. See where this is going? The objective is seizure and control of the economic, political, social, and cultural life of the state. The people run democratic governments, but fascist governments run the people.
I am your voice. I alone can fix it. I will restore law and order to our country. I'm going to make our country rich again. The crime and violence that today afflicts our nation will soon, and I mean very soon, come to an end.
The U.S. Army pamphlet goes on to say, the basic principles of democracy stand in the way of their desires, the desires of the fascists. Hence, democracy must go. Anyone who is not a member of their inner gang has to do what he's told. They permit no civil liberties, no equality before the law. Fascism treats women as mere breeders. Quote, children, kitchen, and the church, end quote, was the Nazi slogan for women. Sound familiar? Well, this is precisely what the Republican Party is pushing.
So feminism is one of the biggest anti-women movements on the entire planet, and it's also one of the biggest lies. It's empowering women to be super independent and, do these certain things, when in reality, we need to bring them back to the kitchen. Let's be honest, they're happiest at the home. We need to bring the families back together. The foundation of society is a family. And if you want to destroy the family, what do? Get the women out of the home.
The pamphlet goes on to say, and remember, this is an Army publication from World War II. If ever there was clarity about what fascism was and why it was a threat, it was from the U.S. Army at that time. It reads, fascists make their own rules and change them when they choose. They maintain themselves in power by use of force combined with propaganda based on primitive ideas of blood and race, by skillful manipulation of fear and hate, and by false promises of security. The propaganda glorifies war and insists it is smart and realistic to be pitiless and violent. Again, the echoes of this in today's Republican Party from the very top are impossible to deny.
They're poisoning the blood of our country. That's what they've done. They poison mental institutions and prisons all over the world, not just in South America, not just the 3 or 4 countries that we think about, but all over the world. They're coming into our country from Africa, from Asia, all over the world. They're pouring into our country.
Trump made the remarks on Saturday at a campaign rally in New Hampshire. President Biden's campaign compared Trump's comments to those made by Nazi leader Adolf Hitler, saying it's similar to blood purity slogans made during World War II. In his speech, Trump also praised other authoritarian leaders, including China's Xi Jinping and North Korea's Kim Jong-un.
Here's more from the pamphlet. The fundamental principle of democracy, faith in the common sense of the common people, was the direct opposite of the fascist principle of rule by the elite few. So they fought democracy. They played political, religious, social, and economic groups against each other and seized power while these groups struggled. Who does that sound like?
So you have to tell Kamala Harris that you've had enough, that you just can't take it anymore. We can't stand you. You're a shit vice president. The worst. You're the worst vice president. Kamala, you're fired. Get the hell out of here. You're fired. Get out of here. Get the hell out of here, Kamala.
With all of this divisive, mean-spirited rhetoric, how do these fascists win the confidence of the people? Well, they do it by wrapping themselves in the flag. The army warns about this, saying the fascists would try to gain power under the guise of super patriotism and super Americanism. And they use these three techniques. Quote, to first divide and then conquer, they pit people and groups against each other. They orchestrate well-planned hate campaigns against minority races, religions, and other groups.
We're like a garbage can for the rest of the world. Immediately upon taking the oath of office, I will launch the largest deportation program in American history. I'll invoke the Alien Enemies Act of 1798. Did you know that? I had to go back that far. We couldn't find anything because modern day politicians, even sort of old time, nobody had the courage of these original people.
Have you heard about senolytics yet? It's a class of ingredients discovered less than 10 years ago, and they're being called one of the biggest discoveries of our time for promoting healthy aging. Let's be honest, the aging process is not our friend when it comes to energy and productivity. I'm feeling a lot more aches and pains these days because as we age, everyone accumulates senescent cells in their body. These cause symptoms of aging like aches and discomfort, slow workout recoveries, sluggish mental and physical energy associated with that middle age feeling, also known as zombie cells. These cells are old and worn out and not serving a useful function for our health anymore, but they are taking up space and nutrients from our healthy cells. Much like pruning the yellowing and dead leaves off a plant, Qualia Senolytic removes those worn out senescent cells to allow the rest of them to thrive in the body. Just take it 2 days a month. The formula is non-GMO, vegan, gluten-free, and the ingredients are meant to complement one another, factoring in the combined effect of all ingredients together. It has a 100-day money-back guarantee, resist aging at the cellular level. Try Qualia Senolytic. Go to qualialife.com/Ken for up to 50% off and use code KEN at checkout for an additional 15% off. For your fascists seek to substitute a perverted sort of ultranationalism, which tells their people that they are the only ones in the world who count. With this goes hatred and suspicion towards the people of all other nations. I've seen this up close. I was reporting from this rally as it was happening.
Before he even took the stage, the rhetoric that we were hearing coming out of Madison Square Garden, that some of the speakers called Vice President Harris the Antichrist, the devil. They railed against effing illegals. They said Puerto Rico, which of course is a U.S. territory, was a floating island of garbage. So this is what we have been hearing out of Madison Square Garden tonight. Kristen, what have you been tracking?
Third, the fascists argue that the world has but two choices, either fascism or communism, and they label as communists everyone who refuses to support them, even though they adopt names and slogans with popular appeal, drape themselves with the American flag, and attempt to carry out their program in the name of the democracy they are trying to destroy. The only way to stop the rise of fascism in the United States, per the U.S. Army's guides to soldiers during World War II, is, quote, by making our democracy work and by actively cooperating to preserve world peace and security. Fascism works by getting men to hate rather than to think. It prevents them from seeking the real cause and a democratic solution to the problem. By falsely promising prosperity, it lures people to embrace its security.
With your vote in this election, we can seal our borders, we can reclaim our sovereignty, stop inflation, raise your incomes, rebuild our devastated communities, and launch a new golden age of American prosperity and pride. That's what we're going to do. It's going to be American prosperity and American pride. But with 4 more years of Kamala Harris, your long nightmare is just beginning. Remember the word. Somebody said, give me one word to describe your opponent, Kamala Harris. You know what I said? Incompetent. I said she's incompetent. She shouldn't be in the position.
The last thing the pamphlet offers is this. Fascism thrives on indifference and
Tens of thousands of people, many of whom have lost their homes based on such falsehood, would be controversial and could damage his Viper appeal early in his presidency. The president-elect unpredictable nature will force California officials of already under huge political pressure into balancing act because they knew that personal dispute with Trump could be counterproductive. Newsom has had a rocky relationship with Trump, exacerbated by his own potential presidential ambitions and California's status as a democratic bastion with the power to challenge the president's-elect policies on everything from the environment to reproductive rights. In a letter to Trump on Friday, Newsom recalled how they worked together to help victims of